I looked at an article just the other day that I had from the mid-'80s, and it was talking about the lively competition in Des Moines with ad agencies. And I think at one time we were known for having more, one-person ad agencies than almost any other market.
Everything was downtown, and I had an office in the old Paramount building where now that old convention center lives that there's 20 years old and they're going to tear down. Figure that one out. But in any event, I could walk over to the Des Moines building and cover 2 or 3 people. Ed LeGrave was in there. Dick Gertis was in there. I could walk half a block and go to see the West Day people. And the West Day people, that was the biggest agency in town. Len Howe at that time, when I came to Des Moines in the late 60s, really ran the place, and Kelly Rucker and Bob Buckley, and of course Walt Shotwell, who people know now is a columnist and retired from the Register, and Ed Whitaker, just a host of others. Jim Bowermaster, who was a great guy. Anyway, they were the heavy hitters in town. And then there was others. There was Lessing Flynn was, of course, around, and Jim Boyd, James O'Malley Boyd, worked for them, as did Celia Wright. And at that time, the 2 Flynns were together, Pete and Connor, and, everything was downtown. So you could walk. You just did your thing.
There were sophisticated agencies like Barton, Durston, and Osborne, which was BBDO. And then there was Dancer, Fitzgerald, Sample, which was DFS. But in Des Moines, we had G&G. That was Grismer and Gertis.
Gertis, of course, was always a great talent. Kind of marched to a different drummer, as we used to say.
I first became aware of Bill Foltz when I was working for Gene Kiefer.
Gene Kiefer?
That has come up. So
oh, he was a madman. There's no other way to describe him. He and a guy named Jim Wiltz had worked in the advertising department of the Register, which is not a good background for an advertising man. An agency person. He was real flashy cars, flashy airplane. Anytime we made any money, he bought more cameras, although we didn't need cameras. But he was quite the hot agency for a while there in about 1965, long in there. And then I don't know where he went, he just vanished.
Kerry had an advertiser, he started up. And then it was Kerry Hill. And then the Nelsons started up.
And Durrell was the classic. I'm sure everybody's had to talk a little bit about Sarb, and just he was infamous, and we all cut our teeth in his offices around the city, and he was a master at working the accounts, working the reps, everything in rate, and having them do all the work, and taking the full 15%.
I did have the chance of working with, really great names in Des Moines in the advertising field. My gosh, when I first got there, we worked with CMF&Z, although not with Willie. We were working with Foltz and a couple of other people. And after that, we moved on to Lord Sullivan and Yoder and had the experience of Carl Guston, who was a trendsetter in his day. I hope you'll bring him back for a conversation. And then when that agency started to crumple, I think, for a variety of different reasons, and people spread out and went other places, then we worked briefly with Lessing Flynn, and of course when Kent Zimmerman and Jim Richardson and oh golly, from Wesley Day, Louis, how can I forget that wonderful name?
We've started an awful lot of advertising agencies over the years. I mean, when you stop and think about it, James O'Malley Boyd and Ed LeGrave and ZLR and Punzak and there's a whole host of them that we really kind of trained. And then they moved on.
Certainly Rex Weitzel was one of them. Rex was, there's a story told of Rex going into New York, somehow getting in to see one of the brand managers for Lever Company, and almost had Pepsodent before they found out he was from Des Moines, Iowa, and had only 3 employees.
Truppy LeGrave and Reynolds was a big agency. Larry Farrell was a big agency. In fact, Larry Farrell probably was responsible for more people going into the advertising business than anybody else. Russ Truppy was a graduate of Larry Farrell. Ed LeGrave was. There are others I can't think of right offhand.
I first started selling in the late 70s for Guarantee Radio, and an account I had was this little agency on High Street, and the owner of it was always in running shorts and running shoes, and just a sweatshirt, T-shirt, or whatever. And he and then Mike McLuhan was in there for a while. It was called You and Me Advertising. Of course, that was Jack Craigie. And he went on, and he and Liz married and created Craigie Newell. And I look back at that from that little one-man shop, and he might have had Napa at the time, I'm not sure, and went on to create one of the biggest agencies, one of the most successful agencies in the city.
But back then, all you needed to get in the ad business was a typewriter and a telephone, so a lot of people got into it. A lot of people didn't stay in it, but it was pretty easy. We had a lot of agencies in town.